There's something fundamentally wrong with what we've been told about the ocean's deepest points. Not wrong in the sense that someone lied to us, but wrong in the sense that the truth is so unsettling that marine researchers have collectively agreed to simply not discuss it publicly. Today, I'm going to break that silence, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why every single deep-sea expedition to the Mariana Trench has been required to sign a very specific non-disclosure agreement that has nothing to do with military secrets or competitive research. Let me start with a question that should have an easy answer, but doesn't. Why did the United States government suddenly classify all bathymetric data below 35,000 feet in specific regions of the Pacific Ocean? This happened in 2019, right after a civilian expedition discovered something that caused them to immediately surface and refuse to complete their mission. The expedition leader, who I cannot name for legal reasons, later stated in a private interview that what they encountered, quote, fundamentally challenges our understanding of natural law, unquote. But before we dive into what's really happening down there, you need to understand something about the deep ocean that most people don't realize. The pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench isn't just crushing, it's reality bending. At 36,000 feet below sea level, the pressure is over 1,000 times greater than at the surface. That's equivalent to having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of a person. But pressure isn't the strangest thing about these depths. It's what pressure does to the fundamental properties of matter that scientists don't want to talk about. Water at these depths doesn't behave like water anymore. Its density increases to the point where the molecular structure begins to exhibit properties that shouldn't be possible according to our current understanding of physics. Sound travels differently. Light bends in ways that violate what we know about refraction. And, most disturbingly, time itself seems to dilate in measurable ways that have been consistently recorded, but never officially acknowledged. In 2012, James Cameron's historic solo dive to Challenger Deep was publicized as a triumph of human exploration. What wasn't publicized was the 3 hours of footage that were confiscated by naval intelligence immediately upon his return to the surface. Cameron himself has only spoken about this once, in an off-record conversation at a film festival, where he mentioned that he saw something that, quote, moved with purpose, unquote, at a depth where the pressure should make any form of complex life impossible. But Cameron wasn't the first to encounter something inexplicable in the deep. The history of deep-sea exploration is littered with incidents that have been carefully scrubbed from public records. The Trieste expedition in 1960, which officially recorded reaching the bottom of the Mariana Trench, had a 20-minute period where all their instruments failed simultaneously. When asked about it years later, pilot Don Walsh said they experienced what he called a, quote, consciousness event, unquote, but refused to elaborate further. Here's what makes this even more unsettling. Every single deep-sea submersible that has descended below 35,000 feet has reported the same phenomenon. They call it the hum. It's not a sound in the traditional sense, because sound shouldn't be able to propagate the way this does. It's a vibration that penetrates the hull of the submersible and can be felt in your bones. The frequency is always exactly 52 Hertz, which is particularly strange because this is the same frequency as the infamous 52 Hertz whale, the loneliest whale in the world, that sings at a frequency no other whale uses. But the 52 Hertz phenomenon at extreme depths isn't coming from a whale. Whales can't survive below 3,000 feet, let alone 35,000. Whatever is producing this frequency is something else entirely, and it appears to be communicating. The pattern isn't random. Mathematical analysis of the recordings shows a complex structure that exhibits characteristics of information encoding. Someone or something is broadcasting a message from the deepest parts of our ocean, and we have no idea what it's saying or who it's meant for. In 2021, a Chinese research vessel, the Struggle, deployed an unmanned probe to the Serena Deep, the second deepest point in the Mariana Trench. The probe was equipped with the most advanced sensors available, including quantum interference detectors that can measure disturbances at the subatomic level. What they found has never been publicly released, but leaked documents suggest they detected what they termed a dimensional anomaly at exactly 35,853 feet. The anomaly appeared as a region where the normal laws of physics seemed to be suspended. Water density fluctuated impossibly. Temperature readings showed variations that shouldn't exist at that pressure. Most bizarrely, the probe's atomic clock showed a discrepancy of 4.7 seconds compared to the surface control clock after only 6 hours of exposure to the anomaly. Time had literally slowed down in that region of space. This discovery led to an emergency meeting between Chinese, American, and Russian naval officials. Despite their political differences, these three nations agreed on one thing. Civilian access to depths below 35,000 feet needed to be restricted immediately. The cover story would be environmental protection, but the real reason was far more concerning. They had discovered that the anomalies weren't random. They were expanding. Satellite data from the past decade shows that these dimensional anomalies, as they're now classified, have been slowly but steadily growing. In 2010, there were 3 known sites. By 2015, there were 7. As of 2024, there are 16 confirmed anomalies, all located at depths exceeding 35,000 feet, and all exhibiting the same impossible physics-defying properties. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. In 2022, a Japanese research team managed to lower a quantum entanglement communication device into one of these anomalies. Quantum entanglement communication works instantaneously, regardless of distance, and can't be blocked by any known material or force. The moment the device entered the anomaly zone, it began transmitting data that shouldn't exist. The quantum signature showed that the entangled particles were simultaneously in 2 locations, one at the bottom of the ocean and one somewhere else. The somewhere else had properties that didn't match any known location in our universe. The implications were staggering. These anomalies weren't just regions of strange physics. They were intersection points with something else, somewhere else. The research team immediately destroyed all their data and equipment, but not before one of the scientists involved suffered what was described as a severe psychological break. He claimed he had made contact with something through the quantum link, something that existed in a space between spaces. He was institutionalized within days and hasn't spoken since. This incident led to the creation of the Deep Ocean Anomaly Task Force, a multinational organization that officially doesn't exist. Their mandate is to monitor and contain information about these anomalies, while trying to understand what they are and where they lead. According to whistleblowers within the organization, they've made some terrifying discoveries. First, the anomalies are not natural phenomena. The geometric precision of their expansion patterns suggests intelligent design. Someone or something is creating or maintaining these zones for a purpose we don't understand. Second, biological samples taken from the edges of these anomalies show DNA mutations that shouldn't be possible. Organisms are being altered at the genetic level in ways that suggest directed evolution rather than natural selection. Third, and most disturbing, every person who has been exposed to these anomalies for extended periods reports the same experience. They describe a sensation of being watched, not by something in the water with them, but by something looking through the water at them from somewhere else. Multiple expedition members have independently described seeing the same thing in their peripheral vision, geometric patterns that shouldn't exist, moving in ways that hurt to perceive directly. The French submarine Archimede conducted a secret survey of the Puerto Rico Trench in 2023, specifically investigating reports of anomalous readings at extreme depths. What they found there has been classified at the highest levels of French naval intelligence, but leaked photographs show something that defies explanation. Structures, not geological formations, not coral reefs, but structures that appear to have been constructed. They're made of a material that doesn't match any known substance on Earth, and they're arranged in patterns that repeat with mathematical precision across multiple sites. Carbon dating of samples taken from these structures yielded impossible results. According to the tests, the material is simultaneously brand new and older than the Earth itself. The molecular structure shows signs of having been subjected to forces that don't exist in our universe. One researcher described it as matter that had been folded through dimensions we can't perceive. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery came from analysis of water samples taken from within the anomaly zones. The water contains traces of elements that don't appear on our periodic table. These elements have atomic structures that should be inherently unstable, yet they persist in stable form within the anomalies. When removed from the anomaly zones, these elements immediately decay, releasing energy signatures that match theoretical models of exotic matter, the kind of matter that would be needed for things like wormholes or dimensional doorways. The Russian military has been particularly interested in these anomalies, and their research has taken a different approach. Instead of studying them from the outside, they've been attempting to communicate with whatever might be on the other side. Using a combination of electromagnetic pulses, quantum field manipulators, and frequency generators, they've been broadcasting mathematical sequences into the anomalies, hoping for a response. They got one. In September of 2023, the Russian deep-sea facility Vostok 7 received a transmission that originated from within the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench anomaly. The transmission was a perfect reproduction of their original message, but with subtle alterations that suggested not just intelligence, but an intelligence that understood their mathematics and was correcting their errors. The message included a series of equations that described physical properties unknown to human science. When Russian physicists attempted to verify these equations in laboratory conditions, they discovered something that shook them to their core. The equations were correct. They described real physical phenomena that we had never observed because we lacked the conceptual framework to look for them. Whatever sent that message understood physics at a level beyond human comprehension and was trying to educate us. But education for what purpose? That's the question that keeps researchers awake at night. Are these anomalies, doorways, windows, prisons? We don't know. What we do know is that they're multiplying, and they're doing so according to a pattern that will, if it continues, result in a network of interconnected anomalies spanning the deepest parts of all Earth's oceans by the year 2031. The United States Navy has been quietly repositioning its deep-sea monitoring stations to create a global surveillance network focused on these anomaly sites. Project Deep Watch, as it's known internally, has already detected some troubling patterns. The anomalies become more active during certain astronomical alignments. They pulse in synchronization with each other despite being separated by thousands of miles. And most unnervingly, they seem to respond to human presence. Every time a research vessel approaches an anomaly, the 52 Hertz signal intensifies. The dimensional distortions become more pronounced. It's as if whatever is on the other side knows we're watching and is watching back. Several researchers have reported experiencing vivid dreams after exposure to the anomalies, dreams that all share common elements. Vast spaces filled with impossible architecture, symbols that convey meaning without being recognizable, and always, always, the sensation of something immense turning its attention toward Earth. The private sector has also taken notice of these anomalies, though their interest is kept strictly confidential. Several major tech companies have invested billions in deep-sea research programs that officially focus on mineral extraction or telecommunications cables. In reality, they're studying the anomalies for potential technological applications. The exotic matter found within these zones could revolutionize energy production, enable faster-than-light communication, or even allow for manipulation of space-time itself. But every attempt to harness the anomalies has ended in disaster. The German research vessel Wissenschaft attempted to extract a larger sample of exotic matter in 2024. The moment they tried to contain it in a magnetic field, the sample underwent what witnesses described as a dimensional collapse. The containment vessel didn't explode, it ceased to exist, leaving behind a perfectly spherical void that lasted for 17 seconds before reality seemed to heal itself. 3 crew members who were closest to the incident reported experiencing memories of events that never happened and knowing things they had never learned. The Japanese have taken a different approach, focusing on the biological implications of the anomalies. Marine life, collected from the edges of these zones, shows mutations that shouldn't be possible through natural evolution. Fish with organs that serve no identifiable purpose, cephalopods with neural structures more complex than human brains, and microorganisms that seem to exist in a state of quantum superposition, being simultaneously alive and dead until observed. One particularly disturbing discovery was made by the research vessel Kuroshio in late 2023. They captured what appeared to be an ordinary deep-sea jellyfish near the Izu-Ogasawara Trench anomaly. Upon examination, they found that its cells contained DNA that was partially artificial, not genetically modified in the way we understand it, but artificial at a fundamental level, as if someone had built DNA from scratch using principles we haven't discovered yet. The jellyfish also exhibited behavior that suggested intelligence far beyond what should be possible for such a simple organism. It appeared to recognize patterns, solve problems, and, most unnervingly, it seemed to be trying to communicate through bioluminescent displays that followed mathematical sequences. When researchers showed it prime numbers through light patterns, it responded with the next prime in the sequence. When they showed it the Fibonacci sequence, it continued it perfectly. This wasn't learned behavior. This was engineered intelligence. The Australian government, which had initially been skeptical of reports about the anomalies, changed their stance after an incident in the Diamantina Deep. A routine survey mission encountered what they described as a moving void in the ocean. Not a creature, not a submarine, but a region of space that seemed to absorb all light and sound. The void moved with apparent purpose, maintaining a constant distance from their vessel as if observing them. When they tried to approach it, it descended beyond the reach of their equipment, disappearing into depths that shouldn't exist according to their charts. Sonar mapping of the area later revealed that the sea floor where the void had descended was perfectly flat and composed of a material that reflected sound waves in impossible ways. Instead of bouncing back normally, the sonar signals were returned with slight temporal displacement, arriving fractions of a second before they should have, suggesting the sea floor in that region exists in a state of temporal flux. The Brazilian Navy made perhaps the most disturbing discovery while investigating an anomaly in the South Sandwich Trench. They deployed a new type of sensor that could detect gravitational fluctuations, hoping to understand the physics of the anomaly zones. What they found was that gravity itself behaves differently within these regions. not just weaker or stronger, but fundamentally different, as if the gravitational field is being influenced by mass that exists in higher dimensions. Their calculations suggested that something massive, potentially planet-sized, exists in a parallel dimension and is somehow anchored to these specific points in our ocean. The gravitational effects we're detecting are just the three-dimensional shadows of this higher dimensional mass. If this theory is correct, the anomalies aren't doorways or windows. They're anchor points, where something unimaginably large is tethered to our reality. The implications of this discovery led to a secret summit in Geneva in early 2024. Representatives from every major naval power met to discuss what they termed the deep ocean crisis. The consensus was chilling. Whatever is happening in the deep ocean is accelerating, and we are woefully unprepared for what might come next. The decision was made to increase monitoring while maintaining absolute secrecy from the public. The fear is that widespread knowledge of the anomalies could cause panic, or worse, attract the attention of whatever is on the other side. But secrecy is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Commercial deep-sea mining operations are pushing into deeper waters and encountering things they can't explain. Submarine cables are failing at unprecedented rates in areas near anomaly zones. And most concerning, the effects of the anomalies are beginning to extend beyond their immediate vicinity. Fishing vessels are reporting bizarre behavior in marine life, with entire schools of fish swimming in perfect geometric patterns, or predators and prey ignoring each other to stare at seemingly empty water. The Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, one of the world's leading ocean research organizations, has quietly shifted the majority of its resources to studying these phenomena. Internal documents suggest they've made a breakthrough in understanding the 52 Hertz signal. It's not random, and it's not a natural phenomenon. It's a carrier wave, similar to how we use radio waves to transmit information. But the information being carried is encoded in a way that suggests it's meant for beings that perceive reality differently than we do. Dr. Sarah Chen, a quantum physicist who was brought in to consult on the anomalies, proposed a terrifying theory before she mysteriously disappeared in late 2023. She suggested that the anomalies are not separate phenomena, but part of a single vast structure that exists primarily in higher dimensions. What we're seeing in our oceans are just the three-dimensional cross-sections of this structure. Imagine a three-dimensional being trying to understand a four-dimensional object by only seeing its shadow. That's what we're dealing with. According to Dr. Chen's calculations, this structure has been here far longer than human civilization, possibly longer than complex life on Earth. It's been dormant, or at least inactive, from our perspective. But something has changed. Something has activated it, and it's beginning to unfold into our dimension. The expansion of the anomalies isn't random growth. It's the structure revealing more of itself in our three-dimensional space. The question that no one wants to ask, but everyone is thinking is, what happens when it fully unfolds? Some researchers believe it could be benign, perhaps even beneficial, offering us access to technologies and knowledge beyond our current understanding. Others fear it could be catastrophic, fundamentally altering the physics of our reality in ways that could make Earth uninhabitable for life as we know it. The most optimistic interpretation is that we're witnessing first contact not with extraterrestrial life, but with extra-dimensional intelligence. The structures, the signals, the biological modifications, they could all be attempts at communication from beings that exist in higher dimensions, trying to make themselves known to us in the only way they can, through the deep ocean where the barriers between dimensions are thinnest. But there's a darker possibility that keeps military strategists awake at night. What if Earth's deep oceans have always been inhabited? not by life as we understand it, but by something that exists partially in our dimension and partially somewhere else. What if we're not discovering something new, but disturbing something ancient that was better left alone? Recent discoveries support this more troubling interpretation. Core samples taken from near anomaly sites show geological evidence of periodic events throughout Earth's history where the normal laws of physics seem to have been temporarily suspended. These events correlate with mass extinction events, suggesting that whatever is happening now has happened before, with catastrophic consequences for life on Earth. The Permian-Triassic extinction event, which killed 96% of all marine species, shows particular anomalies in the geological record that match what we're seeing now. Isotope ratios that shouldn't exist, mineral formations that require impossible conditions to form, and most tellingly, a layer of sediment that contains traces of the same exotic matter we're finding in the current anomaly zones. This has led some researchers to propose the recurring dimensional intrusion hypothesis. Every few 100 million years, something breaks through from another dimension into ours, causes massive disruption to life on Earth, and then recedes. We might be witnessing the beginning of another such event, and this time, we're advanced enough to observe it happening, but possibly not advanced enough to stop it. The European Space Agency has been quietly using satellites to monitor the oceans for signs of dimensional distortion. Their findings are classified, but leaked reports suggest they've detected gravitational anomalies extending from the ocean anomaly sites into the upper atmosphere. Whatever is happening in the deep ocean is beginning to affect space above Earth. The magnetosphere shows unexplained fluctuations directly above anomaly sites, and the International Space Station has reported equipment malfunctions when passing over these areas. In late 2023, a joint expedition by Norway and Denmark to the Malloy Deep made a discovery that changed everything. Using a new type of neutrino detector designed to see through the Earth itself, they detected massive structures beneath the ocean floor. Structures that shouldn't exist, according to our understanding of geology. These structures appear to be artificial, exhibit perfect mathematical symmetry, and extend deep into the Earth's mantle. But here's the truly terrifying part. The structures are active. They're generating energy signatures unlike anything we've ever detected, and they're all connected. Every anomaly site sits directly above one of these structures, suggesting the anomalies aren't random occurrences, but are being deliberately created or maintained by technology buried beneath the ocean floor. The age of these structures is impossible to determine with current methods, but geological evidence suggests they predate the formation of the current ocean basins. This means they've been here for at least 200 million years, waiting. The question is, waiting for what? And why are they activating now? Some researchers believe human activity triggered the activation. Our deep-sea drilling, nuclear tests, or even our electromagnetic emissions might have awakened something that was meant to stay dormant. Others think it's connected to cosmic events, that Earth has entered a region of space where dimensional barriers are weaker, allowing these long-dormant systems to reactivate. The Indian Ocean anomaly, discovered in early 2024, provided the most direct evidence yet of intelligent design. The anomaly itself is perfectly circular, exactly 1 kilometer in diameter, and maintains its shape despite ocean currents and geological activity. At its center, researchers detected an object that defies classification. It's not solid in any conventional sense, but it has mass. It emits no radiation, but it glows with a light that doesn't register on any electromagnetic spectrum we can measure. Attempts to sample this object resulted in the loss of 3 remote-operated vehicles. They weren't destroyed. They simply ceased to exist the moment they made contact with the object. Video footage shows them approaching the object, and then nothing, as if they were edited out of reality. The only evidence they ever existed is the footage leading up to their disappearance and the confused memories of the operators who swear they were controlling them one moment and then weren't the next. The psychological effects on researchers studying these anomalies have become a serious concern. Extended exposure to anomaly data, even just analyzing recordings and measurements, seems to affect human consciousness in subtle but persistent ways. Researchers report experiencing enhanced pattern recognition, understanding complex mathematical concepts they previously couldn't grasp, but also suffering from dissociative episodes where they feel disconnected from reality. Dr. Michael Reynolds, who led the analysis team for the Puerto Rico Trench anomaly, described his experience in a journal that was later classified. He wrote about gradually becoming aware of patterns in seemingly random data, patterns that revealed an underlying structure to reality that we're not equipped to perceive. He claimed he could sometimes sense the presence of the higher dimensional structure, feeling it pressing against our reality like something massive leaning against a thin wall. His journal entries became increasingly esoteric before he voluntarily committed himself to psychiatric care. His final entry simply stated, "They're not trying to enter our world. They're trying to help us leave it." When asked to elaborate, he would only say that staying in 3 dimensions when the universe is shifting to 4 would be like trying to remain a flat drawing when the paper is being crumpled. The private military contractor Aegis Defense Systems was hired by an unnamed government to develop countermeasures against the anomalies. Their approach was to try to disrupt them using directed energy weapons. The test, conducted in international waters in the Pacific, was an unmitigated disaster. The moment their weapon fired into the anomaly, the energy was reflected back, but not in a way that followed any known laws of physics. The reflected energy arrived before the weapon was fired, causing a temporal paradox that resulted in the weapon destroying itself before it could fire, yet somehow still firing. The crew of the vessel experienced what they described as temporal fragmentation, simultaneously experiencing multiple timelines. Some crew members reported memories of events that hadn't happened yet, while others lost memories of things that had definitely occurred. The experiment was immediately terminated, and all research into weaponizing or attacking the anomalies was suspended indefinitely. Meanwhile, marine biologists studying the ecosystem around anomaly sites have noticed something disturbing. Evolution is accelerating. Organisms near these sites are mutating and adapting at rates that should take millions of years, but are happening in months. New species are appearing that have no evolutionary ancestors, as if they're being created whole cloth. And all of these new species share certain characteristics. They're more efficient, more intelligent, and they all seem to be evolving toward a common goal, though what that goal might be remains unknown. One particularly unsettling discovery was a colony of deep-sea crabs found near the Japan Trench anomaly. These crabs exhibited collective behavior that suggested a hive mind, moving in perfect coordination despite having no apparent means of communication. When researchers attempted to study them, the entire colony arranged itself into a perfect spiral pattern and remained motionless for exactly 72 hours before dispersing. The pattern they formed matched mathematical models of higher dimensional geometry projected onto a 2-dimensional surface. The commercial implications of the anomalies have not gone unnoticed by major corporations. Several tech giants have secretly invested billions in research aimed at understanding and potentially exploiting the exotic physics within the anomaly zones. One company, which I cannot name for legal reasons, has allegedly developed a prototype quantum computer that uses principles derived from study of the anomalies. This computer supposedly operates not by processing information faster, but by accessing computational results from parallel dimensions where the calculations have already been completed. The ethical implications of this technology are staggering. If we can access information from parallel dimensions, what else might we inadvertently access? And more concerningly, what might access us in return? There are reports of researchers working on this technology experiencing what they describe as consciousness bleed, where they become aware of thoughts and memories from versions of themselves in parallel realities. The religious implications of the anomalies have been carefully suppressed, but several major religious organizations have quietly formed committees to study what these discoveries mean for humanity's understanding of existence and our place in the universe. The Vatican's Pontifical Academy of Sciences held a closed-door symposium where they discussed whether the anomalies could be evidence of divine intervention or something far more troubling. One theologian who attended the symposium later broke his vow of silence to reveal that the consensus was deeply disturbing. The anomalies, he claimed, matched descriptions in ancient texts not of divine visitation, but of something else, something that various cultures throughout history had encountered and feared. The common thread in all these ancient accounts was the idea of places where the fabric of reality was thin, where things that should not be could cross over into our world. The Aboriginal Australians have oral traditions dating back thousands of years that describe places in the ocean where the dreaming, their concept of the time before time, still touches our world. These descriptions match the locations of several known anomaly sites with uncanny accuracy. When shown data from the anomalies, Aboriginal elders reportedly became visibly distressed and would only say that these were places where the world wasn't finished being made. Similar traditions exist in other cultures. The ancient Polynesians had taboo zones in the ocean that navigators would travel hundreds of miles out of their way to avoid. Norse mythology speaks of gaps in reality at the bottom of the ocean where primordial forces still churn. Even Plato's description of Atlantis includes references to the Atlanteans discovering something in the deep ocean that led to their destruction, not by sinking, but by being removed from our reality entirely. Modern incidents continue to accumulate. In January 2024, a commercial fishing vessel operating near the Aleutian Islands reported their entire catch spontaneously transforming, not dying or mutating, but transforming into different species entirely. DNA analysis of the transformed fish showed they were genetically identical to species that had been extinct for millions of years, as if something had reached back through time and swapped them. The crew of that vessel all reported the same dream that night, a vast intelligence attempting to communicate through images and sensations that human minds couldn't properly interpret. The only thing they could all agree on was a sense of urgency, as if something was trying to warn them about something approaching. The South Korean government has been particularly aggressive in studying the anomalies, driven by an incident in their territorial waters that has been completely censored from public knowledge. A nuclear submarine conducting routine patrols detected an anomaly forming in real time. They observed as normal seawater began exhibiting the characteristic properties of anomaly zones, watched as the laws of physics started to break down an expanding sphere. The submarine's captain made the decision to immediately surface and evacuate the area. As they ascended, their instruments recorded something that shouldn't be possible. The anomaly wasn't just forming, it was being formed. Something was deliberately creating it, manipulating space-time itself to punch a hole between dimensions. The process took exactly 17 minutes and 43 seconds. And when it was complete, the anomaly was identical to others found around the world. This discovery led to a radical shift in how we understand the anomalies. They're not natural phenomena or accidental breaches between dimensions. They're being deliberately created and maintained by an intelligence that has the technology to manipulate the fundamental structure of reality. The question is no longer what are the anomalies, but who or what is creating them, and why. The answer might lie in the pattern of their placement. When mapped in 3 dimensions, including depth, the anomaly sites form a precise geometric pattern, a 3-dimensional mandala of sorts. This pattern matches no known mathematical or geological formation, but it does match theoretical models of higher dimensional structures used in advanced physics to describe the shape of spacetime itself. Some physicists believe the anomalies are anchor points for a massive dimensional engineering project. Someone or something is attempting to alter the fundamental structure of spacetime in our region of the universe. The purpose could be anything from creating a stabilized wormhole network to preparing Earth for a dimensional shift that would fundamentally alter the nature of reality as we experience it. The most recent and perhaps most significant discovery came from the National Security Agency's quantum surveillance program. While the details remain highly classified, sources indicate they detected signals being transmitted between anomaly sites using quantum entanglement. These signals contain information densities that shouldn't be possible, suggesting they're compressed using mathematical principles we haven't discovered yet. When partial decryption was attempted using the most advanced quantum computers available, the resulting data appeared to be blueprints or schematics for something. Not a device or structure we could recognize, but instructions for manipulating matter and energy at the quantum level. Several physicists who reviewed the data independently came to the same conclusion. Someone is sending us instructions for building something, but we lack the technological capability to understand what we're being instructed to build or why. The psychological impact of this discovery on the research community has been profound. Many scientists have resigned from anomaly research, citing mental health concerns. Others have become obsessed, convinced that understanding the anomalies is crucial for humanity's survival. A few have disappeared entirely, leaving behind research notes that become increasingly incomprehensible, filled with equations that use mathematical symbols that don't exist in any known notation system. Dr. James Harrison, who led the British Anomaly Research Program before his disappearance, left behind a final report that was immediately classified. In it, he claimed to have achieved a breakthrough in understanding the 52 Hertz signal. According to his analysis, it wasn't a message or communication in the traditional sense. It was a tuning frequency, designed to gradually adjust human consciousness to perceive higher dimensions. The long-term exposure effects researchers were experiencing weren't side effects, they were the intended purpose. His theory suggested that the anomalies are part of a vast uplift program, designed to prepare humanity for a fundamental shift in the nature of reality. The dimensional intrusions, the biological modifications, the exotic matter, all of it is meant to gradually acclimate Earth's biosphere to conditions that will exist when our region of space undergoes what he called a dimensional cascade, where 3-dimensional space naturally evolves into 4-dimensional space. If Harrison's theory is correct, we're not facing an invasion or even first contact in the traditional sense. We're facing a fundamental transformation of reality itself, one that has happened before in Earth's history and will happen again whether we're prepared or not. The intelligence behind the anomalies isn't trying to harm us, it's trying to save us from being left behind when the universe itself evolves. But there's a darker interpretation of the same data. What if the transformation isn't natural? What if something is forcing this dimensional shift for its own purposes, using Earth as a testing ground or staging area for something larger? The regular timing of mass extinction events that coincide with dimensional anomalies in the geological record suggests this has happened before. And each time, most life on Earth didn't survive the transition. The fossil record shows that the organisms that did survive these events were fundamentally changed, exhibiting evolutionary leaps that can't be explained by natural selection alone. It's as if they were redesigned to function in a different reality. The current mutations and evolutionary acceleration we're seeing near anomaly sites might be the beginning of a similar transformation, one that will leave humanity either transcended or extinct. Recent satellite data has detected atmospheric disturbances directly above anomaly sites that extend into the ionosphere. These disturbances are creating channels of altered space-time that reach from the ocean floor to the edge of space. Some researchers believe these channels are preparation for something larger, perhaps a mass transfer event where significant portions of Earth's ocean will be exchanged with water from a parallel dimension. The implications of such an event would be catastrophic. The introduction of water with different physical properties could alter ocean currents, disrupt weather patterns, and potentially make Earth's oceans uninhabitable for most current marine life. But it might also introduce new forms of life, new resources, and new possibilities for human advancement. The discovery of manufactured structures beneath the ocean floor has led to speculation about previous civilizations that might have faced similar events. These structures show signs of having been built with knowledge of the anomalies, positioned to either harness or contain them. Carbon dating attempts on these structures yield paradoxical results, suggesting they exist in a state of temporal flux, simultaneously ancient and newly created. One theory proposes that these structures were built by a previous iteration of humanity or another intelligent species that faced the same dimensional shift we're approaching. They either transcended to a higher dimension, leaving these structures as a warning or guide, or they failed to adapt and left them as monuments to their extinction. The fact that the structures are activating now suggests they were programmed to respond to specific conditions that are currently being met. The international response to these discoveries has been fragmented and secretive. While publicly maintaining that the deep ocean is being protected for environmental reasons, governments worldwide have been quietly militarizing their deep-sea capabilities. The race to understand and potentially control the anomalies has become the new Cold War, with nations jealously guarding their research while simultaneously cooperating out of mutual fear of what might happen if the anomalies are mishandled. The United Nations has secretly established the Committee for Dimensional Security, tasked with coordinating global response to the anomalies. Their preliminary recommendations include establishing exclusion zones around all known anomaly sites, developing early warning systems for new anomaly formation, and most controversially, preparing contingency plans for mass evacuation of coastal areas if the anomalies begin expanding rapidly. But evacuation to where? If the dimensional shift theory is correct, there may be nowhere on Earth safe from the transformation. Some researchers have proposed that the only solution is to embrace the change, to use the knowledge being transmitted through the anomalies to prepare humanity for existence in a higher dimensional reality. Others argue this is exactly what we shouldn't do, that accepting the transformation means the end of humanity as we know it. The debate has split the scientific community into two camps. The transcendentalists believe the anomalies represent an opportunity for humanity to evolve beyond our current limitations, to join a higher dimensional community of intelligences that have already made this transition. The preservationists argue that we should resist the change, that maintaining our three-dimensional existence is crucial to preserving human identity and consciousness. Meanwhile, the anomalies continue to expand and multiply. New sites are being discovered monthly, and existing sites are growing larger and more active. The 52 Hertz signal has begun to modulate, adding harmonics and complexities that suggest the message is evolving or perhaps becoming more urgent. Marine life near the anomalies is exhibiting increasingly bizarre behavior, with some species appearing to migrate toward the anomaly centers as if called by something we can't perceive. The latest development, which occurred just weeks before this recording, has authorities particularly concerned. Commercial satellites detected a massive energy discharge from the Mariana Trench anomaly, an eruption of exotic particles that briefly created aurora-like phenomena visible from space. The discharge lasted only seconds, but its effects are still being analyzed. Preliminary reports suggest it may have permanently altered the quantum field in a region extending hundreds of miles from the epicenter. Within this altered region, the normal laws of physics are subtly different. Time moves at a rate approximately 0.003% slower than the surrounding area. Gravity is roughly 0.1% stronger. These changes are so small that they don't affect daily life, but they're measurable and they're spreading. If this continues, Earth could eventually become a patchwork of regions with slightly different physical laws, making global civilization as we know it impossible to maintain. The search for solutions has led to some desperate proposals. One group of scientists has suggested using nuclear weapons to destroy the anomaly sites, though others warn this could cause a dimensional backlash that would be far worse than letting them expand naturally. Another proposal involves building massive electromagnetic field generators to create barriers around the anomalies, essentially quarantining them from the rest of the ocean. The most radical proposal comes from a consortium of tech billionaires who are funding research into what they call dimensional surfing. The idea that we could use the anomalies to transport humanity to a parallel Earth where the dimensional shift isn't occurring. This would require technology we don't possess and an understanding of higher dimensional physics we haven't achieved, but they argue it might be our only chance for survival as a species. As I compile this information, new reports are coming in daily. A Russian submarine has gone missing near an anomaly site in the Arctic Ocean. Chinese researchers claim to have successfully communicated with something through an anomaly, but refused to share what was said. The Australian Navy has detected something massive moving beneath the sea floor. Something that appears to be heading toward the largest concentration of anomalies in the Pacific. The truth is, we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know if the anomalies are a threat or an opportunity, if they're natural or artificial, if they're the beginning of something wonderful or terrible. What we do know is that they're real, they're expanding, and they're fundamentally challenging everything we thought we knew about reality. The forbidden zones at the bottom of our oceans aren't forbidden because governments want to hide something from us. They're forbidden because what's down there might be beyond human comprehension, might represent a change so fundamental that exposure to it alters not just our understanding of the world, but our ability to exist in it as we currently are. Every expedition that descends to these depths comes back changed. Equipment malfunctions in ways that suggest the malfunction isn't in the equipment, but in reality itself. Data recorders capture information that shouldn't exist, and the people who witness these anomalies firsthand are never quite the same, as if they've seen something that human minds weren't meant to process. The ocean has always been Earth's last frontier, the place where mysteries still exist in an increasingly mapped and documented world. But what we're discovering now suggests it's more than that. It's a gateway, a threshold between what we know and something vast and incomprehensible that's been waiting in the deep for longer than our species has existed. The question isn't whether we'll eventually understand what's happening in the forbidden zones of our ocean. The question is whether we'll still be human when we do. Whether the price of knowledge is transformation so complete that the beings who finally understand the anomalies will no longer be recognizable as the species that first discovered them. As you watch this, remember that beneath the waves, in places where the pressure would crush you in an instant, and the darkness is absolute, something is happening that defies explanation. The boundaries of our reality are being tested, possibly broken, And we're all living on a planet where the fundamental rules of existence might be about to change. The forbidden zones aren't just places we're not supposed to go. They're places where going means accepting that everything we thought we knew about the universe might be wrong. And perhaps most unsettling of all, they're multiplying, spreading, and getting closer to the surface every day. What started as a curious anomaly in the deepest parts of our ocean has become an existential question for our species. Are we witnessing the birth of a new reality or the death of our old one?
Are the anomalies doorways to transcendence or portals to oblivion?
The answer lies waiting in the deep, in the forbidden zones that we're told not to explore, in the places where the ocean keeps its darkest secrets. And perhaps that's why they remain forbidden. Not because the truth would cause panic, but because the truth might be something we're not ready to accept. That we're not alone, not in control, and not prepared for what's coming. The ocean doesn't care about our fears or our denials. It simply continues to hide its secrets in the deep, in the places where pressure and darkness create conditions where impossible things become possible, where the rules of reality bend and sometimes break. The next time you look at the ocean, remember that beneath those waves, in the places we're told not to go, something is watching, waiting, and slowly, inexorably, changing our world in ways we're only beginning to understand. The forbidden zones of the deep ocean aren't just mysteries to be solved. They're warnings of transformations to come, harbingers of a change so fundamental that when it's complete, the Earth itself might no longer be recognizable as the world we once knew. This is why they don't want you to know about the forbidden zones. This is why every expedition that goes too deep comes back with stories they're not allowed to tell. And this is why, despite all our technology and knowledge, we still know less about the bottom of our own ocean than we do about the surface of Mars. Because some knowledge comes with a price. And the price of understanding what's happening in the deep ocean might be higher than humanity is prepared to pay. The anomalies aren't just scientific curiosities. They're either our salvation or our doom, and we won't know which until it's too late to change course. The ocean remembers everything, holds secrets older than life itself, and in its deepest places, it's preparing something that will change everything. The forbidden zones aren't forbidden to protect government secrets or hide alien contact. They're forbidden because what's down there is bigger than governments, older than aliens, and more transformative than anything human imagination has conceived. And it's waking up,